Hi and welcome back to the CAD Spec YouTube channel. We're here again with Rob Lakey to have a tech talk about manufacturing, architecture and the relationship they have to create the best built environment that we can. So Rob, can you give us a bit of an overview of this relationship?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the buzzword we're using in the industry around this is about convergence, and it really means, when we say that, we mean construction and manufacturing coming together to realise these efficiencies. And I think in the construction world, BIM has been that unifying process for a long time now, a decade or more. But as manufacturing comes in, there's a lot that construction can learn from manufacturing about building off-site, building more efficiently, being effective in doing those things. But the way manufacturers design and build their things doesn't easily fit into that construction world at the moment. So there isn't a common language that those two industries can use to really have a conversation around materials and products and that yet. So that's probably where we need to, as two industries, come together and really work out what that common language needs to look like. I'm sure you've got...
Well, of course, and that is the perfect way to explain it, really, because it's not just about the models and the geometry of these products, because obviously the remit of a manufacturer is different to a remit of an architect. An architect is interested in constructability, and a manufacturer obviously wants to make sure their product does what it says on the box. They want to make sure they can analyse the systems. Again, if we're looking at the HVAC industry, a manufacturer wants to look at an AHU and think, okay, what's my flow rate, my pressure drop? What's the performance of this model? And an architect is interested in some of that aspects of that information, but they don't need the nuts and bolts model. So it's about sharing the right pieces of information between the two platforms, and it's sometimes unfairly stacked against the manufacturing industry, because architects or the built environment sometimes expect that information given to them, and we've seen a massive uprise. MBS and BIM object and so on and so forth. The manufacturers putting their products on those sites because at the end of the day, if I'm a designer and I put your digital asset into my model, then that's what we're going to use. We looked at sustainability last time. We looked at making sure that we try and implement as much information as early on in the process as possible. And this is what these models can provide us, really.
So I think you make a really good point there, Lee, and I think the level of detail that we use in BIM is where we could work with manufacturers more closely to make sure that the models and the information they're providing is appropriate to that level, because as you say, a manufacturer, when they're designing something in their software, are going to have to design every nut, bolt, washer and thread, which isn't necessarily information that needs to come across into the construction space. So having a better conversation around LOD and what is actually required by the employer's information requirements is probably where we could create a common language and a common understanding. And I think that's going to become even more important when we start to talk about off-site manufacturing. We're seeing multiple components from multiple manufacturers being put together in a factory environment before being shipped to site. You see the skids and that with all the electrical equipment going into big office buildings. The thing we just talked about with level of detail becomes even more critical because it's multiple manufacturers, not just one manufacturer, coming together and then putting that into the construction space. So I think that is where the common language is still or more important when we start to talk about that off-site manufacturing. And I don't know if you've got any customers that are doing that yet.
Well, yes, we do, especially when we start looking at the housing market in particular. High-rise accommodation as well. That is becoming more and more common to build off-site and bring to site. And this is where technology can help as well. Help us understand the context of the site. Make sure that we've got this correct, because obviously if it turns up and it's wrong, then we've got problems. And it's just making sure that we can effectively collaborate and communicate not only design intent, but also pass that information along the chain, really. Everywhere from the civil engineers that are putting the foundations in, all the way through to the turnkey and CAFM solutions that we briefly looked at last time.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, are you seeing any particular, government information or texts that are coming out to help this in the future, or is it a case of just working together and, like we said, just sharing information and reviewing past technologies and past discussions and projects and building on that for the future?
I think if you look into 1192 and now 19650, the more at the construction stage, and obviously some of those documents go into the asset management stage, there is useful information in there as to give you a bit of a framework. But for me personally, I've not seen that definitive standard or that definitive document. This is how manufacturing and AEC, how that convergence is really going to work.
Yeah. A continuous workflow in a sense.
And I really hope that, and I believe that construction and manufacturing aren't so arrogant as to think they can't learn something from each other.
Yeah.
And there's a proper open dialogue about these are the best bits of manufacturing, this is the best bit that the construction industry knows. How do we bring this together to affect real change for society? And we're going back to what we talked about in our first talk, sustainability, because they overlap these things. They aren't standalone topics. There is definitely a huge overlap, and as we get further down the road, we'll see even more overlap around these things.
Yeah, and we talk about change, and that's where personally I've seen a big change really is in that construction process.
Yeah.
Stereotypically going from A3, A1 documents printed out and you find it in a puddle when you turn up on site, to more digital workflows, and being able to pick up on that digital asset that an architectural technician placed into a model 9 months ago, and being able to see the transition of why it's been put there, who put it there, and the reasons behind this, and just make for more effective coordination and construction when we get to site, which ultimately has an impact on sustainability, because we're doing things much more efficiently with less waste, with the right materials for the right reasons. And then, as we touched upon last time, it doesn't just stop with construction.
No.
And technically, really, that's where it starts. That's where we start using that built environment and being able to feed into CAFM systems and have effective running of buildings, because it's not getting cheaper at the moment. Energy, it's not getting cheaper. So being able to utilise that built environment to to its absolute maximum and most efficient processes, then that can only be good for everyone involved, really. Obviously, thank you for your time. It's been really interesting and insightful to look at that bigger picture from your perspective when we're looking at this interrelationship between manufacturing and architecture. And obviously this is a conversation to be built upon, so anyone in the channel wants to reach out to us at CADspec, feel free to do so, and we'll join you again soon for another tech talk on the CADspec YouTube channel. Thank you very much.